I'm the Director of Engagement for Diversity and Inclusion in the Institute Community Equity Office, also known as ICEO. So before we begin, I definitely want to let you know that this was a group effort to make this event possible. So I'm going to acknowledge the different individuals who have helped make this possible. So for the planning team, I'd like to thank Paulina Wolf, Molly McInerney, Sarah Kim, Cheryl Motley, and Rachel Ornitz. We also have our AV team, Justin and Tom, for making this hybrid event possible. And also the facilities team, Juan, Basco, Maria, Chris, and Mike, who have set up the physical space to accommodate our numbers and this specific layout. Corbin Swain is our photographer, and I'd like to acknowledge him as well. So I'm going to share some Zoom guidelines. Live captioning is available. Due to the size of the event, you will not be able to unmute or turn your camera on. You may use the chat function to send any questions to the host. There will be time at the end for Q&A. We may not get to all your questions, but we will forward it to Mr. Wasalu, Jaco. Note this session will be recorded. We have a photographer on site. If you have any concerns, please reach out to Corbin at the back and to Paulina. Another announcement is please subscribe to our newsletter. Visit iceo.mit.edu if you'd like to hear more about our events and future presentations with our MLK scholars. I also want to acknowledge those who are joining us virtually and in person. So we have our current MLK scholars. We have Eunice Ferreira, Javit Drake, Brandon Ogbunu here in person with us. Brian Nord is joining us virtually. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Jaco's faculty hosts. We have Mary Fuller from the Literature Department here in the office, here in the Bush Room, and Professor Nick Montfort, who is joining us virtually, and he is in the Comparative Media Studies and Writing. I also want to acknowledge the team that helped set up the table here, Mr. Wasalu Jaco's table. So I'd love for you to raise your hands. You're a group of people to make this possible. Gabby Ballard, yes, I don't know all your names, but please raise your hands. Thank you for making this also possible and setting up the room for his request. And last but certainly not the least, definitely want to thank our senior leadership support, the Provost, Cindy Barnhart, and our Institute Community Equity Officer, John Dozier. I also want to recognize we have a former MLK scholar who might be in this space already, and her name is Kenda Mutongi. So she's a former MLK scholar and now is full-time here at MIT. About our speaker, Wasalu Muhammad Jaco, better known by his stage name, Lupe Fiasco, is a Chicago-born Grammy Award-winning American rapper, record producer, entrepreneur, and community advocate. Rising to fame in 2006, following the success of his debut album, Food and Liquor, Lupe has released more than 4 acclaimed studio albums, including Drogas Wave in 2018. While musical genius and ingenuity are at the forefront of Lupe's achievements, the artist extends his innovation to projects that aim to foster creative discourse and opportunities in underprivileged and impoverished communities. These continued efforts to elevate community engagement can be seen through the myriad of movements he has co-founded and supported. As the co-founder and co-owner of community initiatives such as We Are Mural, Magnifying Urban Realities and Affecting Lives, the Neighborhood Startup Fund, Society of Spoken Art, and Studio SV, Lupe Fiasco proves that he is more than just a mouthpiece for change, but a committed facilitator of intellectual community discourse and outreach. I invite Wasalu to join me at the podium.
Thank you, Beatrice. Appreciate it. And now, the technical difficulty. I like this moment. I like this moment right here. When it's like it's gonna start, but then it's like, see? Like, Right. All right. Damn. Okay, we're good? I invite the folks that are at the back table. We have a table here. If you want to come up, there's two slots here. For anybody, either you all on that back table there or that table there. Yeah. Trying to invite you up to the good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Sarah, we have to grow proteins, right? I'm overbooked. Merci, merci. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. This talk will be in 2 sections. It's going to be terrible for the people on Zoom, and I apologize in advance because there's a hands-on activity. And then there's also in the second section a space where we're going to have to mute the Zoom because we're going to be playing some hot fire that cannot be put out on the internet. So apologize to the folks at the Zoom if you have to check out. Welcome. My name is Wasalu Jaco. I am a MLK visiting scholar / professor here at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. First and foremost, I want to send very, very big shouts out to Professor Mary Fuller and Dr. Nick Montfort, Doc IT, for co-hosting this position. So thank you all again. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And my mom and dad and everybody else, but you know. I tell jokes, I'll try not to. There's slides, but not many. And then also the talking portion of this is going to be very Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Hunter S. Thompson in terms of how it's going to traverse, in terms of structure and syntactical kind of stuff like that. It's going to be messy. I'm just going to read from my notes and hopefully you'll catch on. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not any of that technical stuff. I'm not a mathematician. I am a rapper. And I like to make life easy on me and as well as others. Optimal novelty. We'll get into that after we get into the activity. Today, we're going to play the oldest board game in the history of mankind, at least recorded. Put that in a caveat because history likes to lie. So this might be a lie. But it's the world's oldest recorded board game. It's from Mesopotamia, from the city of Ur. It's called Ur. So the folks that are eating, I apologize. You have to stop eating. And you're gonna have to kind of not mess up my boards with your filthy hands. So if you could pair off with someone, meaning it should be someone sitting right across from you. And also there's another space up here in the front. If you want to play on the good boards, come on, come on. Yeah. So there's a few people who've already kind of played this that are kind of dotted around the room. Hopefully if you don't know how to play, or if you know how to play, if you can pair off with somebody who doesn't, make things go a little bit faster. This is going to take about 20 to 25 minutes to get through this game. The rules are very simple. It's a race. Actually, I'll do the due diligence. It's a race. That's the route, depending on what side that you're on. The dice dictate how many spaces you move. You have to get all 5 of your chips off of the board. you have to roll the exact number required for your chip to leave the board. This central spot right here, and these, the ones that look like stars, those are called rosettes. Those are safe spaces, meaning that you can't be taken on those. And you can also stack your pieces only on those spots, just the rosettes. If you're here and someone's there and they roll a 1, they can't take you because you're safe. But if you're here and they're there and they roll a 1, they can take you, which means you have to remove the piece from the board and start over. Got it? Any issues or questions? So you roll the dice first, hence why you might want to take some of the stuff off the table or move it to the side. You roll first. The black points on the dice dictate the number. So you both roll. Whoever gets the highest number goes first. Oh, I'm sorry. After you roll to see who goes first, the person who won rolls again, and that first roll dictates where you start on the board. Okay? And if you need any help, raise your hand. I'll come over. And you cannot split up your rolls. Whatever you roll is only on one piece, so you can't split it up. So I think this might be the time where some of you are realizing that the game is a little bit more deceptive and violent than it kind of sets out to be. Fun fact, the middle area of the board is historically called the pack of dogs in ancient Sumerian. But up in Lit, we call it the River of Blood. Yeah. And if you get a piece off of the board, you put it in the gold bowl. No, it goes in the gold bowl. That's fine. You can put it, or in the cup, or in the clear cup, the gold bowl or the clear cup. We call the gold bowl Nirvana. So hopefully you make it to Nirvana. If you're waiting for like a 1 to get off the board, we've been there. We've been there. We call it. If you won, the rule is over the table before into the air, which is your hands. So you would shake first over the table before you put your hands in the air for victory. For the sake of time, we're going to start rapping in about 2 minutes. I promise there still will be a winner of your match, whether you finish the game or not. 45 seconds. Three, 2, 1. Dice down, players. Dice down. Dice down. Now, wait. Do not touch the board. Do not touch the board. There still will be a winner. We're going to play how many chips do you have left on the board? The person with the least amount of chips won the game. Can the winners please stand up to be recognized? The winners stand up. Go. All right. Hey, Sandy. So for the balance of the time, I'd like to get through the end of this section and hopefully get into the next section of the piece. House conditions. See, I had to use the term on you. House conditions. Optimal novelty. Makes a little bit more sense now. Yeah. Waiting for that one or that four out of chaos. Yeah. Hoping that the surprise would go your way. Right? If you felt forced into this, it was meant to be novel. Here's a picture of David Blaine also being forced to play with me. And we actually played 4 more games after this on the plane in the air. So I'll get back to that. Sorry. Whoa, no. So when I knew I had to do this talk, and when I went to meet with Beatrice, my initial reaction was, I want the talk to be called "What Am I Doing at MIT?" Since I've been at MIT, this is what I've been doing. Playing I discovered this game. I didn't discover it, but I personally discovered it about 6 or 7 years ago, wandering around YouTube, seeing a clip, the oldest board game in the history of whatever. It's like, oh, let me get that. Went on Amazon, bought a board, played a bunch of games with my business partner, Bonnie, and put it down for multiple years. And then when I was moving here to MIT, to Boston, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take the game. Let's just take it. Brought it into the office. My neighbor, Carl Holt, who's the governor, I'm the commissioner. You all are players. And we played a game with no expectations, and he lit up. I was like, ooh. He's like, oh, let's go play this with such and such. And they lit up. Ooh. You know what? Let's take over Lit Tea one day, which we do up at the literature department. It was like, ooh. People were getting saucy. People were getting fancy. People were getting sexy. People were getting violent. It was choosing violence. That was like the phrase of the day. She or he or they chose violence, right? The name of the talk was going to be Optimal Novelty and the Pacifist Route, right? Because there's a strategy where you can play without killing anybody. Or can you? Or did you even want to? River of Blood, Mrs. River of Blood here. Mrs. Pack of Dogs. But what it started to do was, and I did with no expectations of this, was it started to light a fire in the department, right? And it became an introductory tool to kind of meet people, right? And meet people in a way where you got to see who they were, not what they were, not their position, not their job, but who they were. And it brought out a certain, the brother here asked me, what do I need to do? And I said, I just need you to be beautiful, right? That's all you need to prepare for. Just sit there and be beautiful. And that's what the game brought out. It became a unifying force to a certain degree, right? Because did you really win or did the dice win? Who can take credit for the win, right? The chance or the luck, what is it? But it didn't stop there, because that wouldn't be MIT of me to just leave it as a friendly game amongst colleagues in the off time that they're in between classes. And so me being an entrepreneur took a little cue from Sloan, and me and Carlito, as I called him, started the Société Internationale de which right now is the only governing body in the entire world for the game of started on the 4th floor. And not only did we not stop there, there's a mailing list for you to join and become a member of the Société Internationale de which is a lean and a nod to the Haitian community as opposed to the French, the Haitians. And you get the English for free, so very efficient. Not only that, there's a tournament. The first official tournament of to be held December 2nd, hosted by the BSU over in Walker. It's a $10 buy-in, $250 pot. Show yourself. Not only did we stop there, there's in talks to do one at Harvard, the Harvard player, and then the Cambridge player, then the Boston player, then the Massachusetts player, and the Northeast player, and the New York player, and the world player. Seen the rule sets. There's the origin story. There's Doc right there, Doc IT as I call them. Those are some of the first beta testers, guinea pigs playing And there's an Instagram. That's one thing I've been doing. And it doesn't stop there because it started to give up lessons. So now we'll wax philosophic and hopefully poetic for the next couple minutes. One of the things that I asked all of my colleagues to do was to keep a little notebook and just think about, how they felt or what they thought when they played the game, right? And so I did the same. And so here are the rambles. And they are quite rambly, so prepare. It's almost an oxymoron. Optimal novelty, ordered chaos. Introduce surprise into a system. Surprise is a system, so introduce a system to a system. Constrained freedom, stochastic allegiance. What happens when systems meet? What systems when happens meet? Chips are platforms for the realization of chaos distributing through a circuit. This is circuits, boards, switches, chips, and energy. Energy used to produce chants at the speed of 32 feet per second. Chants created through a violent interface with stability, which induces its own stability. What happens when systems meet? The threshold is explosive. Because you threw them dice real hard, didn't you? Shook the shit out them dice. I'm talking to you. I seen you over there just, come on, brother, I gotta get the money back for the kids. I seen it. Behaviors are traded. So where does the chaos go? Does the behavior that is chaos trade into the mind? Is it absorbed in the cognition and become a neurotransmitter? Does it become a decision? Does it become an intelligence? Does it commute through a step-down converter? How much is it downgraded? What happens to the excess energetics? Does it dispense heat or sound? There's an acoustic value to a sonic value that has a physics. This physics creates an aesthetic. This sound aesthetic becomes a Pavlovian trigger, a psychological device. The material doesn't absorb inward to dampen the effect, it radiates it outward across the surface. One kinetic energy turns into another kinetic energy, combinatory nodes where efficiency is induced, concentrations of wealth, efficiency, and risk. With the increase in efficiency comes an increase in risk. Retroactivity undoes chance. 4 variables unified into one law. Energy becomes instruction. Instruction becomes variability in the face of distribution. The invasive species is the introduced chaos. It extracts the stability. Ecosystems are balances. They guard against novelty. But without novelty, a system becomes a fragile monoculture, unable to adapt to invasion. Gradual introduction of novelty makes a system robust. Optimal novelty. But what is the optimal novelty? It becomes Wait for it. Novelty-optimy, where optimization becomes a state and novelty describes and categorizes that state. Optimization takes. Optimization is a bridge between separate ki. Ki governed by the laws of thermodynamics. Ki is made up of the unknown. We distribute the unknown. Unknown are the dice in the hand. They become known. A piece is moved. The unknown begins again. Optimization becomes a brief pause in between ki. Then ki begins again. How do we manage the unknowns? And then you win. Or did the ki win? Bridges suggest distance. Distance decides validity. Concentration is more valid. Wide distribution is less valid. What is the optimal distance? Where's the out of bounds? Congregation is more valid. What if I rolled the dice one at a time, each in a different room, several weeks apart? Does it do anything for the ki? AZ, a rapper from Brooklyn, said, solitude certifies all moves. There are these superpositions, the novelization, flats and points, meanings at the summit. The nature of the universe is to persist. Optimal novelty was a first impression. How we use surprise. How do we respond to chaos in the stochastic? How do we distribute that chaos? How does that chaos distribute us? What happens when you remove the dice completely? What happens when you eliminate chance from the system and replace it with absolute certainty? What breaks down? What are the limits of standardization? What are the limits of customization? How we process uncertainty and mold it into usable instruction. It's an antenna for chance. Chance empowers. Eventually, the novelty wears off. In the spirit of Lakoff and Johnson, their seminal work, Metaphors You Live By, which I live by, combining the spectral extremes that are objectivism and subjectivism to give birth to a centrum of experientialism. I wanted you to experience a thing today, right? We will play a round of Mesopotamian then return from our journey for a finely waxed, poetic, not to the point of Brazil, but to a Panama of tolerated stubble. How does one contend with a reintroduction? How does one successfully accrue and distribute familiarity out of the unknown into an other unknown? What was the intention of the design of certainty? This is a sight. Surprise, which is what I do. I sell surprise. I'm a rapper. I mentioned that earlier. All I do is come up with punchlines and jokes and revelations. Why? Why do I do that? Surprise is evoked by the unexpected. Events and its intensity is determined by a degree of schema discrepancy, where the novelty and the valence of the eliciting events probably do not have an independent effect. Unexpected events cause an automatic interruption of ongoing mental processes that is followed by an intentional shift and an intentional binding to the events, which is often followed by causal and other event analysis processes by schema revision. That's what I do. Sounds fancy now because it's in a white paper. Rappers sell surprises. In that surprise, there's an opportunity to learn something deep and something that sticks. That's why I have a fan base. That's why I have a hardcore fan base. And I try and use that fan base in a way that is valuable, that adds value. And I wanted to get a little bit of that and share a little bit of that process here with you all today, introducing you all to something new and novel optimally amongst your peers for the sake of learning something new, not only about the person sitting across the table from you, but also maybe potentially about yourself. Part one, Finn. Now, I do apologize. We started 10 minutes late. This last piece, I don't know, we have classes to rush off to and teach. The part two is very simple. It's just listening. The other part of it is something that I like to call fishing. Yeah. Not that type of fishing. This type of fishing. Yeah, you know what it is? You think you know? And that's me actually doing it. Fishing. So February, when my class starts, you see a bunch of students, maybe some of your students, maybe some of you, sitting outside, perched up around one of the famous, one of the 36 pieces that are on campus. Don't mind, leave us be. We're just fishing for ideas, for bars, for concepts, right? So that is it. I think Beatrice had to leave. Yeah.
I don't know if your schedule allows, I know just past 1 o'clock.
I have to go teach class. We can take 2 questions. Yeah. And then Mara, I'm going to be right behind you. Go ahead. I'll find you. No, don't. Okay. I won't find you. Are you a ninja? All right. Two questions. 2 questions. Or 3. Or 4. Yes. Stand up, make yourself known.
Sleep planning and MBA dual grad 2022. Love the activity. I guess my question is around the word optimal and how it shows up in optimal novelty. I think a lot about collective, indigenous cultures and ways that we were before. Right now, this is a game that we're playing competitively, but maybe in Mesopotamia, there was like an understanding that was about fate is decided. So, we're just playing and every time it's something that's beyond us. So what are we thinking about in terms of, what are you thinking about in terms of optimizing? Like optimizing for what in this context, right? Is it the joy of playing the game? Is it the success? Is it the collective experience? And how does the different things you might optimize for, I guess, affect how the framework?
Well put. I'll respond poorly. That's the challenge, right? Like, what is optimal? What do we need to know? How much do we need to know for something to be optimal? Do we need to know anything at all? Right? Is it just about doing something? Right? Because if you spend all this time trying to figure out, right? You want to be careful. You don't want to do anything that's going to harm anybody, right? But you also need to do it. Like, you actually need to step out there and see what happens, right? That's the novelty part of it, right? They're not separate, right? To get at optimization, you have to do novel things. You have to take on challenges. You have to risk, right? You have to delve into the unknown. So I think that's part of the praxis of it, right? And I think it's going to remain unknown. I don't think there's a such thing as optimization, especially in such dynamic systems, right? Ever-changing adaptations fluidly over time and in space. Like, good luck with that. But when you look at something that's optimized, what was the cost of that optimization, right? And who's going to have to pay for it? right? So it's just that. It's just a presentation of that. I don't have answers to any of these questions. Bars. You're fishing. Yes, yes. Oh, actually, let's split it up. Oh, come on in. Then come on. Come on. Who doing? He leaving. Appreciate you, brother.
Hi, Akuna, I work in career advising, been a fan of yours for a long time. I'm always interested in the idea of a rapper as they get older. I'm always thinking of, Common talked about hip hop is one of the few musics that are fairly new. It's started by young people. So we don't really have rappers. What we have now, rappers getting older and still being kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at this.
So I'm saying how you're continuously optimizing your music, either for your audience, you talked about your key fans, like where's your focus at this point as an older rapper? You clearly have had success, you have fans as opposed to, I'm trying to get hits on the radio.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, these likes. Like,
yeah.
Where's that optimization taking?
First about these clothes, the rule is when we do our tournaments that you come in the formal wear of the culture of your choice, right? So I'm wearing the formal wear of Harlem, clearly. No, just wanted to get that out the way so people know. I'm focusing on myself and learning more about the things that I do. Sophia asked me yesterday, what's the point of remember all that surprisal research and white papers I was reading? And there was a quote in there. I found this to be profound. This section here at the bottom, it says, what is it good for? What is it good for? Talking about all this surprisal research and optimization and all these different things. What is it good for? And it reads, in this regard, Munich and Romney suggest that learners might benefit from attending to a surprise signal by analogy to the way that athletes pay attention to a pain signal. In the early stages of learning, surprises suggest a path to transformative restructuring of knowledge. Just as sore muscles tell athletes that they are making progress towards a transformative training goal. In later stages of learning, less frequent surprises, fun and all that entails, selling records and blah, 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 can lead to a recognition that one is approaching the mastery of the domain. Just as less frequent pain helps athletes to recognize that they're approaching their training goals. So for me, I think the arc of rappers is to get way, way better at surprising people, but with intention. So I'm trying to carve and shape my intentionality through optimization, right? But that requires me focusing on myself, understanding myself, mastering myself, because I know how you all work, right? But I'm still scared that I don't know how I work. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah? Any last questions? Lastly, we solid? We good? We gold? Thank you very much for your time. Big thank you to the ICEO and the diversity office here and staff here at MIT. Big thanks to Comparative Media Studies, which is what this is. This is a comparative media study. That's my department. And so you just studied some media and we compared it. Done, right? But I want to thank Sophia Hassenfuss for sitting up with me all night painting dice. Those dice are hand painted. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And congratulations on your new position as well. We'll miss you in humanities. But yes, and for everybody who helped, who set up stuff, all of the my brother Brandon and all my peoples, I appreciate y'all. Thank you to the MLK fellows. And I'm off to class to teach. So I'll see you all next time. Holla back.